All right, welcome back everybody to another Why Scrum Weekly Big Question. As you might know already, I generally at the beginning of every class these days, I ask my students, what are the big questions you want me to answer before I even start teaching you anything? So this week's question is, well, it's not really even a question, it was just a statement, but I get this all the time. It says PSM versus CSM certification. So I get this quite often. What's the difference between PSM 1 and CSM, or Professional Scrum Master 1 from scrum.org and Certified Scrum Master from Scrum Alliance? While you might get a different description of what's the difference between the two of them from different Scrum trainers and different people within the industry, here's how I describe it. These days, the two different certifications have less difference. I was gonna say less in common, but no, that's the opposite. They have more in common these days than I think they ever used to. They're so close to each other these days, it's almost they're almost equal. The reason I tend to encourage people to get their CSM, their Certified Scrum Master, from a Scrum Alliance certified Scrum trainer like myself is, well, it's not just self-serving because I am one of them. It's also because CSM, or really any certification from Scrum Alliance, requires training. Scrum Alliance is a nonprofit trade organization uh, based on education. So we want people to be educated. I can't say the same for scrum.org. I don't know enough about their operation or about their business model to say that they are a nonprofit trade organization based on education. I actually don't think that they're a nonprofit organization at all. But that's just my knowledge. It may be a knowledge gap there. I don't know. But the certifications, back to that. The PSM1 from scrum.org versus the CSM from Scrum Alliance. Historically, the CSM has been more widely accepted worldwide, and the PSM1 not as much, not as I don't want to say reputable, even though back in the early days, the PSM1 wasn't as reputable. Now I think it is. Now I think they're very, very comparable. But what I want to say is recognized. The CSM is recognized more than the PSM1 is. I'm going to say that historically, Scrum Alliance has been less focused on software engineering than scrum.org has. The PSM1 used to be, and I don't know if it still is, but the exam for the PSM1 used to be very, very focused on software engineering techniques and software engineering practices, not only at the individual and team level, but also at the organizational level. Scrum Alliance's CSM, it is not based on software engineering. You might see a question or two out of many that mention software engineering or mention software development, but not really much at all. We definitely don't touch, well, I shouldn't say it that way. We don't speak so much about software engineering in one of my CSM classes. And I know that there are a lot of certified Scrum trainers out there teaching CSMs that don't talk about software engineering much at all, or even mention it at all. While at the same time, there are some CSTs out there teaching CSMs that talk only about software engineering. So my suggestion is always to anybody thinking about getting their CSM is research your trainers first, research the CST first. And if you're going to get your PSM1, what I generally tell people is get your CSM first. Go take a class, get your CSM certification. And then here's the thing. To get your PSM1, you don't actually need to get training. You just need to take the exam and pass it. So I suggest taking your CSM class, getting your CSM certification after you pass the exam, and then go right out to scrum.org and look for the open assessment for the PSM-1. The open assessment for PSM-1 is sort of like a practice test using actual exam questions. My suggestion is if you pass that open assessment for PSM-1, if you pass that at 85% or higher, I suggest give scrum.org their money. I think actually in 2024, this is still January of 2024, I think the cost for that exam just went up, but I could be wrong. Some students have told me the exam just got more expensive. But it might be worth it. Just give scrum.org the fee for taking the exam and take the exam. If you got less than 85% on that open assessment for PSM-1, you might want to do a little bit of research. You might want to do some sort of self-education before you take the exam. But here's what I'm hearing from potential employers of Scrum Masters now. They're not just looking for the CSM anymore. They are impressed with some candidates that have their CSM and PSM-1. That's starting to show them that these candidates are very concerned about being the best Scrum Master they can be. But what I'm also starting to hear from recruiters and potential employers is that the A-CSM, the Advanced Certified Scrum Master, is now becoming not required, but it's much more desired. Okay, it's more desirable. So not to promote myself too much, but I do teach that class. I have another trainer in my organization, Marcelo Lopez. He teaches that class. He's starting to teach it once a month. We can offer that for you. But there's also good PSM-2 trainers out there. And I know for a fact that some of them, their PSM-2 classes, which is PSM-2 is comparable to the A-CSM. The PSM-2 class for some of these trainers, very, very different from how the A-CSM is taught. So maybe taking both classes for that certification, that may do you some good. As far as Scrum Alliance certifications go, the only exam you're going to ever have to take for Scrum Alliance is the CSM. We don't have exams for any of the other certifications. You must go to training for all the other certifications, though. As far as scrum.org certifications go, every single one of their certifications requires an exam. I'm not so sure about how many of those certifications require training. I think it's very few of them require training, if any at all. So you might want to check that out for yourself. Again, the big thing here is going to be also research your trainer. Definitely get in touch with your trainer or get in touch with other students that have taken that trainer's classes before and see if that class is really for you. I'm probably leaving some things out that are important to you about the CSM or the PSM-1. So if you want to get in touch with me, please go ahead and email me at wisdom@yscrum.com. Look me up on LinkedIn. My handle in LinkedIn is Agile Rick. And yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. Thanks again. We'll see you next week with another yscrum Big Question of the Week. Thanks.